Hi and Assalamualaikum. For the background of innovation, this project will show on how to decrease the use of non-renewable materials in construction, such as weathered limestone. Instead of using those materials, we will use recycled materials, which is paper and sawdust. There are some procedures that we need to follow before turning the material into concrete and the final result of using it. Then, for the usage of innovation materials, sustainable materials that we use will replace the aggregate in concrete mixture. For coarse aggregates, we will use paper instead of limestone, and it will produce papercrete. Then, for the fine aggregate, we will replace it with sawdust and become sawdust concrete. And later, we will explain more on the procedure, apparatus, also the advantages and disadvantages of it.
Workability of fresh concrete test and the compressive strength test procedure for the papercrete and sawdust material. Due to there is a problem to conduct this test in real, I have taken a video on YouTube from various sources and will explain about this test based on the video. This is the list of the apparatus that we need to conduct this test. First of all, we need to calculate all the required cement, sand, gravel, papercrete, and water required to produce concrete G30 using mixed design process. Next, we need to weigh all the material according to mixed proportion for cement, sand, and coarse aggregate, and also the papercrete for a specified volume of concrete. Note the room temperature and relative humidity. Wipe the laboratory pan mixer with a clean cloth to prevent cement and fine aggregate being stuck to the inner surface of the pan while mixing. Pour all of the ingredients like cement, sand, gravel, papercrete, and also water into the pan mixer. Let the mixing time be 1.5 to 2 minutes after all ingredients are added. Ensure about 20 revolutions of the pan mixings. Add the water if needed. Stop the mixer and pour carefully the mixing fresh concrete into the bucket. Next, we will conduct the slump test. The slump cone shall be in the form of a frustum of a cone. The internal surface of the mold is to be thoroughly clean and placed on a smooth, horizontal, rigid, and non-absorbent surface. Place the mixed concrete in the clean slump cone in 4 layers, each approximately 1/4 in height of the mold. Tamp each layer 25 times using tamping rod. Remove the cone immediately, raising it slowly and carefully in the vertical direction. As soon as the concrete settlement comes to a stop, measure the height of the concrete in centimeters. The difference between the height of slump cone and height of concrete after settlement is the slump. For the compressive strength test procedure, first we need to clean the mold and apply oil. Fill the excess fresh concrete in the mold in layer approximately 5 cm thick. Compact each layer with not less than 35 strokes per layer using a tamping rod, or you can also use the vibrator. Level the top surface and smoothen it with a trowel. The test specimens are stored in the moist air for 24 hours, and after this period, the specimens are marked and removed from the mold and kept submerged in clear fresh water until taken out prior to the test. Remove the specimen from the water after specified curing time and wipe out excess water from the surface. Clean the bearing surface of the testing machine. Place the specimen in the machine in such a manner that the load shall be applied to the opposite side of the cube cast. Align the specimen centrally on the base plate of the machine. Rotate the movable portion gently by hand so that it touches the top surface of the specimen. Apply the load gradually without shock and continuously at the rate of 140 kg per centimeter second per minute till the specimen fails. Record the maximum load and note any unusual feature in the type of failure. Repeat all of the test procedure to replace the papercrete with the sawdust and record all of the data in the table.
Alright, so the advantage of papercrete. Firstly, papercrete is more economic. As we know, the paper that we use in papercrete is from waste paper such as newspapers, so it will reduce the material cost to produce concrete. And second point is low tech. Okay, so relative to the process of producing OPC, ordinary Portland cement, producing papercrete is more easier. There are less steps and we don't use high tech such as kiln. We only use water to degrade the paper and produce paper paste, and lastly producing paper pulp, and then the paper pulp is ready to be combined into the concrete mix. Third point is excellent sound and heat insulator. So papercrete is excellent sound and heat insulator. There have been many research about this topic. As we know, when to produce sound insulator with low cost, usually we use the egg container that flat, and we have the egg container for 30 eggs, the gray one, so it can absorb sounds and repel less sound wave. So the exact same concept is being used in papercrete, and it can be applied. So for heat insulator, the papercrete have many voids inside of it, so the air is freely moving in and out of papercrete, so the papercrete stay dry, which help to enhance resistance to burning. And lastly, the advantage of papercrete is lightweight relative to the usual concrete. It is more light than the usual concrete in terms of kilogram, and also the materials before we mix the concrete. So papercrete is more suitable for roofing as it is lightweight, and brick as it is excellent sound insulator, and also suitable for concrete table because it's economic and use low tech. Alright, on to the advantage of sawdust concrete. Firstly, the advantage is it is lightweight. As we know, we replace sawdust with coarse aggregates, so the weight comparison is sawdust is more light than coarse aggregate, which contribute to more lightweight concrete. And second point is easy to produce. What I'm trying to say is sawdust is a waste product from the wood industry, so we can take the sawdust and just use it in our concrete mix rather than other type of sustainable materials, recyclable materials, just like the papercrete. We need to process the paper. There are some steps, even though it doesn't involve high tech, but sawdust is easier to obtain and use. Alright, and the third point is high vapor permeability. So the air is free to move in and move out, and the concrete stay dry, so it helps the fourth point, which is resistant to freezing, burning, and termite. So the high vapor permeability will help combat freezing and burning, and also termite. Thus, the concrete itself, the physical condition, will not degrade in short amount of time. So sawdust concrete is suitable for cold places such as basement and cold room. So for basement, usually basement have high water content in the air, which makes the condition wet. So if the condition is wet, there will grow the mold will grow on surfaces, but if we use sawdust concrete, there will be no mold on the surfaces. Alright, next to the impact to economic and environmental aspects. So for economic aspects, there are 2 points. The first one is reduce cost for concrete. As we know, the paper and sawdust, we can obtain it in cheap prices, so it will reduce the cost for materials. And the second point is increase efficiency of workers. Both of our material have the same characteristic, which is lightweight. So when the concrete mix is lightweight, the workers can work faster and they will less tired. Alright, so the third point is reduce industrial waste. Okay, for this point, if you can see on the diagram on the left top of the screen, it is the process of cement making, and at the bottom is the waste from industrials. Specifically in the picture is wood industrial. So to reduce industrial waste, maybe we can take the wood industrial waste, and we can use cheaper, like the cheaper for trees, for branches from the trees. So we can use the cheaper to produce similar product like sawdust. Okay, so for last point is reduce carbon emission. Okay, that relates to the first picture, the cement making process picture. So when we use waste materials, we don't have to use high-tech or use complex process to produce a material that can be used in concrete. In another word, we can just we have less steps to produce materials that suitable in making concrete. Alright, so this is the materials preparation for papercrete. In our laboratory activity, we use the coarse aggregate and fine aggregate, which is river sand. The coarse aggregate is maximum 20 mm of size, and we use OPC 53, which is a specific grade. And lastly, we use the paper pulp that we sink in water and wait until the paper degrade into paper paste, and then we dry the paper paste and grind it into paper pulp. Alright, so this is the materials preparation for sawdust concrete. The same materials, we use sand, river sand and coarse aggregate with 20 mm maximum size, OPC 53, the specific grade, and for sawdust, we obtain sawdust and dry it under sun for 24 hours, and then we put the sawdust in paper bag to avoid from paper dust to absorb water in air. Alright, so this is method of casting concrete. For the papercrete, firstly we use the wet casting method, which means when the mixed concrete is fresh and wet, we pour the mixed concrete into steel formwork, so the workability is good. The wet concrete mix fill the spaces inside the steel formwork, and we also use concrete foam oil before we pour the mixed concrete, so the concrete is easier to release from steel formwork. Next point is dried in open air. So after we have poured the wet papercrete mix into the steel formwork, we let it dry for 24 hours in open air condition, so there is great air circulation to help the papercrete dry. And after 24 hours, we open the steel formwork, and then we move on to curing process, which we submerge the papercrete cube in water, depending on how many days we want. For example, if we want to test the cube on the first day, so we will just cure for 1 day. If we want to test it on the 7th day, then we will curing for 7 days. So for marking, we mark papercrete cubes with A, B, and C to avoid confusion. And next, for the sawdust concrete, we also use wet casting and use a steel formwork with the same concrete form oil to help when we open the steel formwork. And then for sawdust, we also dry it in open air for 24 hours. And also the same for curing, we submerge it in water depending on the age that we want before we do the compressive test. And then for marking, we use DEF, which is different from papercrete, so there is no risk of changing or confusing the concrete cubes.